Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of O.J. Simpson? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Orenthal James Simpson was born on July 9, 1947, in San Francisco, California. He went by the name O.J. His father, Jimmy, was a janitor and a drag queen. His mother, Eunice, was a hospital administrator. In 1952, his parents separated, and O.J. lived with his mother. As a teenager, O.J. was a member of a street gang and was arrested 3 times. After this, he met the famous baseball player Willie Mays, who inspired him to abandon his criminal ways. Ultimately, this inspiration was insufficient to last a lifetime, but it did persist for a while. In 1965, O.J. graduated from high school and enrolled at City College of San Francisco. He was a successful football player at the college and eventually transferred to the University of Southern California. There, he continued to perform well as an athlete. In 1967, O.J. married a woman named Marguerite Whitley. After college, O.J. played professional football for the Buffalo Bills. He did not perform exceptionally well for his first few years, but eventually he became a star running back. In 1973, O.J. became the first player to rush for 2,000 yards in a regular season. He spent his last 2 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers. In December 1979, O.J. played his last game. Before retiring from football, O.J. started making appearances on television, engaging in an activity he referred to as acting. He would go on to appear in several shows and even a few movies over the next 30 years. His most prominent role was as an incompetent detective in the 3 Naked Gun movies. Much of his success came from performing in commercials and providing celebrity endorsements. He made over $500,000 a year just from Hertz Rental Company. In 1977, O.J. started dating a woman named Nicole Brown. He was married at the time, but he refused to let that slow down his love life. O.J. divorced his first wife in 1979. In 1985, O.J. and Nicole married. The relationship was tumultuous and violent. There were 62 incidents of alleged domestic violence perpetrated by O.J. during the marriage, and the police were notified on 8 separate occasions. Law enforcement interaction only led to 1 conviction, which occurred in 1989 when O.J. pleaded no contest to spousal abuse. In 1992, O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown Simpson divorced. Unfortunately, the couple was unwilling to give their divorce a chance and attempted to reconcile. During an incident in October 1993, Nicole called the police and accused O.J. of domestic violence. By May of 1994, the relationship was completely over. O.J. was simply too violent. After the breakup, O.J. embarked on a new career adventure. He decided to give stalking a try. Unlike his so-called career as an actor, O.J. was convincing at being a stalker. Nicole was afraid that he was going to murder her. It was a fear that was completely justified. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On June 13, 1994, at 12:10 a.m., Nicole Brown Simpson and a friend of hers named Ron Goldman were found dead outside of Nicole's condominium at 875 South Bundy Drive in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. Both victims had been stabbed multiple times and had defensive injuries. The police believe that the murders took place late on June 12, probably sometime between 10:15 and 10:40 p.m. O.J. Simpson was the obvious suspect. It seemed clear to everyone that he did it. When he was questioned by the police, officers noticed that he had a cut on his finger. After some DNA testing was conducted, a warrant was issued for O.J.'s arrest. Under an agreement between the police and his attorneys, O.J. was scheduled to turn himself in on June 17 at 11 a.m. Instead of surrendering, O.J. went on the run. He was in a 1993 Ford Bronco owned by a friend of his named Al Cowlings. Al was driving the vehicle as the police followed. He would later say that O.J. was in the back with a pistol, threatening to harm himself if he was not driven back to his mansion in Brentwood. This low-speed pursuit was broadcast on television and became a notorious incident. Tens of thousands of people lined the streets and highways in Los Angeles to watch it. The chase ended after 60 miles, and O.J. was arrested just before 9 p.m. Inside the Ford Bronco, the police found a .357 Magnum, clothing, $8,000, a passport, a disguise kit, and family photos. O.J. pleaded not guilty to charges of murder. He hired about a dozen attorneys, including Robert Shapiro, Alan Dershowitz, Johnny Cochran, F. Lee Bailey, and Robert Kardashian. These attorneys were later referred to as the Dream Team. The trial, which began on January 24, 1995, would become one of the most notorious in history. The prosecution's case was mostly built on O.J.'s history of violence against Nicole, as well as DNA evidence collected from blood at the crime scene and O.J.'s residence. The defense argued that the police framed O.J. On October 3, 1995, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty on both counts of murder after deliberating for less than 4 hours. In February 1997, O.J. was found responsible for the murders in a civil case, which has a lower standard of proof than a criminal case. He was ordered to pay $33.5 million in damages. On September 13, 2007, O.J. and 3 conspirators took sports memorabilia from a Las Vegas hotel at gunpoint. O.J. was charged with several offenses, including kidnapping and robbery. In 2008, he was convicted and sentenced to 33 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 9 years. He was released in 2017. In 2023, O.J. reported to the media that he had received a cancer diagnosis. Later, it was revealed that he had prostate cancer. O.J. suggested that he was highly confident in his ability to beat the cancer. One thing was for sure, he was not going to die from cancer. On April 10, 2024, O.J. Simpson died from cancer. Now moving to my analysis. The not guilty verdict in the O.J. Simpson trial is one of the most controversial in the history of the justice system. O.J. went to his death denying responsibility for the murders. The state, of course, believed that there was overwhelming evidence of O.J.'s guilt. This brings me to the question, was O.J. guilty of the murders? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. O.J. Simpson had a motive to kill Nicole and had a long history of being violent toward her. The circumstances of the murders were highly unusual if the attack was carried out by a stranger. It is almost unheard of for an adult male and adult female to be killed at the same time by a knife-wielding perpetrator. In most instances, the stranger would select an easier target. On the night of the murders, O.J. was last seen by a house guest at 9:36 p.m. The crime occurred sometime between 10:15 and 10:40 p.m. At 10:25 p.m., a limousine driver showed up at O.J.'s mansion in Brentwood. He was there to take O.J. to the airport. The driver did not see the Ford Bronco. At 10:40 p.m., the driver buzzed the intercom at the gate, but O.J. did not answer. Right after this, the driver observed a shadowy figure approach the mansion. The same house guest who had seen O.J. earlier that night heard 3 thumping noises. At 10:54 p.m., O.J. came to the front door of his mansion and said he overslept. This meant that O.J. had no alibi for the time of the murders. Both the driver and the house guest said that O.J. appeared to be agitated. O.J. had 4 bags with him. He would not let the driver touch one of the bags. O.J. only checked 3 bags with a porter at the airport. A witness at the airport saw O.J. dumping something into a trash can. O.J.'s blood was found next to bloody footprints near the victims. His blood was in a trail of drops leading away from the victims toward a back gate. Blood from both victims and O.J. was found on the outside of the door of the Ford Bronco, as well as on the inside of the vehicle. O.J.'s blood was found in drops leading from the area where his Ford Bronco was parked to the front door of his mansion. Nicole's blood was found on socks found in O.J.'s bedroom. A blue knit cap was found at the scene of the murder. It contained hair consistent with O.J.'s hair. On the night of the murders, O.J. was wearing a dark blue shirt that was never found. Dark blue cotton fibers were found on both victims. Fibers from the Ford Bronco were found on both victims. A black leather glove was found outside of O.J.'s mansion at the same place where the limousine driver noticed the shadowy figure. The glove contained DNA from both victims and O.J. It also contained clothing fibers and hair consistent with both victims, O.J., Nicole's dog, and the Ford Bronco. The matching glove was found at Nicole's condominium next to Ron's body. When the police called O.J. and told him that Nicole was dead, he responded, "Who killed her?" When the police interviewed O.J., they noticed a cut on his finger. At first, he said the cut occurred in Chicago, but changed his story after the police told him blood was found inside his Ford Bronco. Now, O.J. claimed that he cut his finger on June 12, but could not remember how. O.J. Simpson was involved in the notorious low-speed pursuit and was clearly trying to escape justice. The escape attempt was not disclosed to the jury. Moving to the exculpatory factors, investigators made a few mistakes during evidence collection. One officer who collected evidence at the crime scene, Mark Furman, lied about his repeated use of racial slurs. He later pleaded no contest to perjury. The defense claimed that the gloves found by the police did not fit O.J. Simpson. That's pretty much it for exculpatory factors. When considering all the evidence, do I think that O.J. Simpson was guilty of the murders? Yes, he was guilty in reality, and guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The state was correct. The evidence was overwhelming. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. O.J. Simpson was a criminal who largely managed to escape serious consequences for his behavior. He was cold, callous, self-centered, grandiose, impulsive, irresponsible, sadistic, immature, vindictive, insecure, petty, angry, violent, jealous, creepy, remorseless, and had a sense of entitlement. During his marriage to Nicole, O.J. frequently attacked her physically. When she finally rejected him, he became a stalker. Specifically, O.J. was a combination of a rejected, resentful, and predatory stalker. He repeatedly harassed and intimidated Nicole. He terrorized her in an effort to regain power and control, and he prepared for an attack. Motivated by jealousy, O.J. carried out this attack and murdered Nicole. Ron Goldman was killed simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The outcome of the trial should have been a guilty verdict, but O.J. had several advantages. For example, the murders occurred just 2 years after police officers were acquitted after beating Rodney King. This contributed to a particularly high level of racial division in Los Angeles. The jury comprised 9 members who were black, including one who was a former member of the Black Panther Party. O.J.'s attorneys were able to point out every mistake that investigators made as far as evidence collection and exposed one officer for lying about using racial slurs. There was a dramatic moment where O.J. Simpson put on the gloves which were found by the police. Clearly, he was trying to make it seem like the gloves didn't fit. The gloves had experienced some shrinking due to how they were treated after being recovered, but they did technically fit on his hands. O.J.'s acting was unconvincing, as ever. Later, he tried on a new pair of gloves of the same exact type, and they fit without any problem. During closing arguments, Johnny Cochran told members of the jury to acquit O.J. Simpson to send a message to the police. Ultimately, they followed his instructions. Now moving to my final thoughts. What is the legacy of O.J. Simpson? I think that O.J. Simpson stands as a reminder of what happens if a stalker is rich, famous, and influential. One could argue that O.J. was a stalker with juice. The timing and the circumstances of the murders that he committed allowed an incompetent jury to act on their emotions while feeling as though they were justified. The truth is they simply let a killer walk free. The verdict only inflated O.J. Simpson's ego. He went on to commit another serious crime, falsely believing that he was special and could get away with anything. O.J. confirmed, for anyone who still had a doubt, that his legacy was that of a violent and remorseless offender. Those are my thoughts on the case of O.J. Simpson. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.